There are many things to be worried about when traversing the dangerous swamps of the world, from nasty bullywugs to tribal lizard folk to the ever-present ancient black dragon hiding in the muck. But usually, you will see these coming. A few warning shots, maybe the sound of an angry roar in the air before you get obliterated, but not with the Shambling Mound. A shambling mound is an amalgamation of rotted vegetation stuck together in a semi-humanoid form. It consumes everything in its path, from living plants to mushrooms to insects to whatever animal or humanoid creature that lands in its way. Typically, the mound does so by surprising its target, when in the case of animals or humans. It will hide directly beside bushes or float around in the mire, resembling normal vegetation completely. In fact, it is so good at mimicking natural vegetation that it is virtually impossible to tell it apart, even if you know it is there. One of the greatest mysteries about these foul creatures is how they're actually made. You see, it has been cataloged that the birth of a shambling mound is relying on a thunderstrike actually hitting a pile of swamp plants. Very much like how electricity brought to life the Frankenstein's monster, that's essentially what's happening here. By some miracle or some unknown factor, the electricity from a thunderstrike hitting the plant matter gives it some semblance of life, forcing this collection of matter to take shape and start absorbing everything in its path. Many mages have tried replicating this birth, but to no avail. It is said that countless thunderbolt spells, chain lightnings, and cold lightning spells have been used on all matters of rotten swamp vegetation, hoping to replicate the effect, however unsuccessful. This has left mages pondering whether the actual thunderstrike that activates the birth is actually a normal thunder, or if it has somehow been infused by some thunder-related primal elemental in a different realm. Priests suggest this might actually be the will of the gods, giving birth to this creature for some unknown purpose, which would explain why they take on their humanoid shape, a factor that honestly makes no sense. You see, shambling mounds appear to have hand-like appendages as well as feet-like stumps that they use to slowly walk from one place to another. They also always carry some manner of head at the top of their body, however, this head actually serves no purpose. You see, when shambling mounds eat, they do so by engulfing their prey inside of their tangled bodies, crushing them to death or asphyxiating the target, and then using their inner fibers to absorb the nutrients from the body. Sometimes you will see this head with teeth and sometimes with hole for eyes, however useless as these factors can be. You see, mounds don't actually see with those eye holes either. Instead, it has been proven by mages during their experiments that shambling mounds actually see electromagnetic auras from people. They have a fine-tuned radar, so to speak, for electricity, and they use this to see around. So even if they might have eye holes, they are virtually useless. So this brings to question, why are these shambling mounds resembling humanoids, if it is not actually necessary for them to look the way they do? In fact, they even go out of their way to look towards the enemy that they're targeting, even though they can very easily attack from any angle in their body and they see in every direction. Instead, they specifically turn towards their enemy to attack them and to, in quotes, see them. It's very odd. This has led people to believe that as part of the creation of a shambling mound, the soul of a dead humanoid must be used to possess the plant matter. However, experiments by priests have yielded negative results. Priests don't seem to be able to turn shambling mounds like they do with undead, and holy water doesn't seem to have any interesting property on the mounds either. So whatever reason these mounds might have to form humanoid shapes and whatever might be the real cause for their creation is still unknown. But maybe one day we will figure it out. What's interesting about it though is that shambling mounds have existed from the beginnings of time. You see, people have found through excavation paintings in old caves depicting old humans venerating shambling mounds as gods thousands of years ago. This leads priests to further believe that Shambling Mounds might have been the gods' first attempt at creating humanoids, which would explain why they behave humanoid-like and why they have the rough shape that they possess. Now, Shambling Mounds are extremely dangerous. Not just that they are very hard to spot, but because they're exceptionally resilient. We have already mentioned that they are created by electricity and that they can sense electricity in some regard all around their general vicinity. But if anyone were to actually use electricity against them, would very quickly find out that that is a terrible, terrible idea. Shambling Mounds actually absorb electricity and empowers them. Many scouts have mentioned seeing mounds simply walk through thunderstorms, taking direct hits from lightning strikes and growing in the process. In fact, it is known that shambling mounds don't actually grow by aging, but instead grow by being invigorated by lightning. They're also extremely resistant to fire, which tends to be a not so well known fact. You see, shambling mounds are filled to the brim in muck and water, which makes their tangled vines resist fire. They're also very good against cold magic, since the vast majority of the vegetation that comprises a shambling mound is actually rotting and dead vegetation, which creates a coated layer against the actual living part of the vegetation in the middle of the creature. Having this natural layer surrounding the very core of the creature makes it impervious also to blunt damage, as the shambling mound can simply stretch and contract to fit its needs, which makes forced blunt impacts unsuccessful in damaging this type of creature. But what about the brain then? I mean, all we can see is this collection of stuff. Well, shambling mounds do have a brain, though it is not a literal brain as, say, an animal or a human would have. What they possess is more of a spinal cord made out of roots, like a root cord. This centerpiece uses electrical impulses to control the vines and move the actual creature. Now, there is some level of intelligence to this root cord, and you could theoretically converse with it as you would with, say, a tree if you were to cast the correct Speak with Plants spell. You would find these creatures to be fairly intelligent if you were to talk to them when compared to, say, other types of plants, or maybe even when compared to certain animals. I mean, these guys know exactly how to hide, they know how to surprise you, and they know how to defend themselves against you. Pretty smart stuff for a plant. Some shambling mounds also have the interesting ability to regenerate their bodies. For example, if you were to cut off one of their limbs, it would be fairly trivial for the shambling mound to simply regrow another by shifting around the contents of its body and repurposing some of its inner tangles. It has also been noted that the shambling mounds appear to get special regenerative properties when submerged in water or when in contact with heavy rain. It doesn't happen instantaneously, so you wouldn't worry about having your druid cast a tidal wave spell on a mound, but if in contact with water through the course of a few hours, the shambling mound will start to regenerate its wounds and completely go back to being full health. Lastly, let's talk about the actually killing of shambling mounds, or if anything, eliminating them from a swamp, something that can be way harder than anticipated. You see, even though shambling mounds are technically plants, they don't actually need sunlight to survive like typical plants do. Since they are omnivores, they can eat honestly almost anything. As long as there are plants growing on the ground, or fishes in the ponds, or lizard folk in the swamp, or silly weak adventurers passing by, a shambling mound will make do, which makes starving them rather difficult. This means that actually hunting them and killing them is the way to go. The problem with this is that shambling mounds are so intelligent that they actually feign death most of the time. When an adventurer slashes a mound enough, the mound will simply collapse on itself and flatten on the ground to pretend like it has been defeated. It might even release magical objects or gold that has been stuck on its body outward to entice adventurers to grab their loot and leave the beast alone, only to then have the beast wait out a few hours and awaken once more to continue its hunt. This process alone is the sole reason why entire swamps that were previously believed to have been cleared of shambling mounds come to resurface once again as infested grounds later on. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and make sure to leave me a comment either in here or on my Twitter to let me know what other creature you guys would like me to talk about. Have a great day, peeps.